Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cinema A to B. Alec, we're going to talk about it. This is one of our favorites. This is 2008 when it was HBO and not Max nonsense. This is 2008's miniseries Generation Kill.
So I had the pleasure of watching this year recently, probably the last couple of months. I went through and was like, yep, you know what I haven't watched for a while? Generation Kill. I'm going to tell you, it holds up. I think this is probably my third or fourth full watch through. I've started a couple times, watched the first episode probably 2 or 3 times more than all the others, just as I'm like getting myself thinking I was going to watch through it again, but it holds up. The character development in this series is amazing. Just the differences in characters, how they build them, how their arcs go, how they deal with everything. I mean, they really took this book. I haven't read the book, so keep in mind they may very different, but from what I've read and what I've heard, they've done a great job of bringing the book to the screen. And the actors they cast, like, it's not a who's who at all. I think only 1 or 2 characters are really well known even at this point. The others are pretty much no names, are still B, C list actors, but they bring it. It's fantastic. It kind of gives you just an insight from what I've heard of the Marine Corps and how it operates, and just the frustrations and some of the issues that we ran into with invading Iraq, that it just captures it really, really well and captures these characters kind of going through it. So it's not an easy watch, sorry, excuse me, but it's a great watch to kind of get this. So, and you were the one who turned me on to it. So
yeah. And my dad was the one, I think, that first saw it and was like, you have to watch this. And my dad's impetus for recommending it so highly, my dad for a 4-year stretch from 84 to 88 was 82nd Airborne. He was a paratrooper. And we were stationed, I don't know what it's called now. They changed the damn name. Used to be Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Now it's, I don't know, Fort Freedom or something. But anyway, he recommended it because he was like, this is the closest thing to being in modern military that he'd ever seen. Like, it just the depravity, just the crazy personalities from all walks of life that you encounter in the modern U.S. military. And so that's what really resonated with him, was just like this. He's like, Ben, this is what it was like. These are the guys that you're serving alongside. This is how ridiculous this is. But these are, I mean, as far as the United States military, I mean, this isn't just run of the mill Marine. I mean, a Marine's pretty elite anyway. It's not a large fighting force. But this is Marine Recon, and go YouTube what it takes to become a Recon Marine. Holy smokes! I mean, they're and the Marines have brought back this the Raiders, which is now their kind of combat special forces. I think they work with their SF now, but because Recon's different. Recon's a totally different ballgame. I mean, your whole idea is that you get in, scope everything out, and get out without anybody really knowing you were there. They do encounter resistance, but that's not what they're built to do. So, but the training these guys go through is just insane. I mean, you've got they go to jump school, so they're paratrooper qualified. They go to mountain training, desert warfare. You name it, they've done it. So these are like elite unit, which is hilarious because they still come off as dysfunctional, as like, they just, that training just doesn't inherently get rid of your personality.
Yeah.
So the comedy is nonstop. I mean, this is one of the funniest miniseries that, I mean, there's humor in Band of Brothers, but it's not this, because this is the modern warfighter, and they're funny as hell. I mean, they really are. And so, and they got that right. Like,
they did.
Ray Person, Corporal Person, that's the guy. And
yeah. And I already love because James Ransone, who plays Corporal Person, is in The Wire in season 2, which he's absolutely fantastic in as well. So I was really happy to see him. But like HBO does that kind of thing where like I've noticed they use a lot of the same actors from series to series to series. I'm not sure how that really happens because they're all produced by different people. But I guess someone up on high from HBO is like, these are our guys. We're going to use these guys in all of the shows, which I'm okay with. Like, especially in the case of James's.
HBO then was kind of a small, tight-knit family as far as the shows they had running. So yeah, he does show up in a lot of other HBO programming. But of course the guy that ended up being the biggest star from this for good reason is Alexander Skarsgard. Son of one of our show's favorite actors ever.
Stellan Skarsgård, who's not in this, but still fantastic.
And Alexander is incredible in this. And this is the first thing I ever saw him in. And when I found out he wasn't American, I was just blown away. I was just like, wait, what? And he delivers a performance that is very much in line with the real Brad Iceman Colbert. Like that. And you talk about a professional soldier. That's what Iceman is. I don't know I think he's retired now. I'm not sure. Highly decorated, did in a broad program where he was embedded with the Royal Marines in the UK for a while, cross training. And so he plays that character really, really well. Like the rest of them are kind of screw ups, except for Rudy.
Yeah.
Who
actually plays himself.
It's the real guy, Rudy Reyes. Yeah. And Rudy actually shows up as one of the trainers in this, I don't know, NBC I think ran this reality show a couple months back called Special Forces World's Toughest Test. And they had a bunch of ex-actors and or current like B-level actors and some former athletes run through a mini version of Special Forces out in Jordan. And Rudy was one of the instructors. Still is, he's like 50, he's in his 50s, freaking yoked, just still jacked.
Well, I mean, if this is the guy in the first episode, because I'm sure he actually did it, but he did it in the show, they're in the desert in, I guess, Saudi Arabia, or I don't know where they filmed it, but I'm sure he was in Saudi Arabia at the time. But literally, like, puts on a gas mask, loads his weighted vest harness up with rocks, puts a backpack on filled with rocks, and then runs miles. And I'm like, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, he's a beast.
But he's the real deal.
So yeah, he's the real deal and just plays himself in this. But
and does a good job. Like it doesn't. It's not like some of these others where they get the real people like 15, 17 to Paris, where like you could tell they're not actors. Not to throw that on the bus, but we're going to throw this on the bus. But Rudy, he does a really great job of, delivering lines and kind of interacting with these other actors. I was really happy with that.
Yeah. The cast is great. And it doesn't even matter if these guys are in minor parts or more major. Everybody now, nobody's really, I'm looking through and a few of these guys have had nice careers on television. Like, the guy that plays Thick, Stark Sands, he's carved out a decent career in television. And then so has, Jon Huertas that plays, Antonio Espero. Like he's a regular on, that show with, This Is Us. He was a regular on This Is Us. Yeah. So he's,
because he plays the stepdad.
Yeah. So he's kind of carved out a nice career. The guy, when I first saw this, the only guy that I recognized is the guy that plays Evan Wright, Lee Tergesen, because he's in Wayne's World. I love you, man.
No,
so
man,
he plays the Rolling Stone reporter, and this is all true. So Evan Wright got embedded with Marine Recon in 2003 during the invasion of Iraq and wrote articles for Rolling Stone magazine while he was embedded with the unit. And then, I believe they compiled those into a book.
In a book. Yeah.
And then that's what the show's based on. So yeah, it's all true. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. My favorite lines are, oh yeah, we're going to strong point cities with unarmored Humvees.
Hey, look, Brad, we took an airfield.
Yeah.
It's just dumb what they did with this. I mean, they even talk about it. They you take some of the most highly trained Marines and you put them in Humvees to basically just do random little missions, but are not anything what they're actually built to do. Like you said, strong point of town and unarmored Humvees. What the heck?
But there's a whole doctrine at the War College on sowing. How do you sow fear in your enemy? And you do stuff like this. You take, you take these elite units and you do some really gutsy stuff with them because they didn't even go through. I mean, they went through that one town, but there was another one they just bypassed, didn't even mess with it.
Yep.
I'm trying to look. Who is the? This is one of my favorite scenes. Oh yeah, it's the guy that plays General Mattis. And he's only in 2 episodes, but they're up on that bridge, and he's just chewing that guy out.
Yeah,
and totally played Mad Dog Mattis accurately. Because then Mattis went on to be what? Whose administration was he in? Was it Trump?
Trump's?
Yeah, it was Trump. Yeah, he didn't last very long. Trump didn't listen to him. But yeah, that whole thing where they're stalled out on that bridge, and Mattis is this. I can't use the colorful language, but he basically just you guys, you've got to move. We're not here to get stalled out fighting the enemy. This convoy has to keep pushing, and you encounter resistance and you fight back, but it has to keep moving. And and
he's yelling at RTC-1, not even actually at the recon people at the time, because I think Godfather comes up and he's like, "We're going to take care of this."
Yeah, Godfather.
Wait, sorry. We're going to take care of this. And,
that guy's a really good actor RTC. Too.
Yeah, because he doesn't sound like that at all. That's not his voice.
No, and he asks, he's why do you talk like that? And he's like, throat cancer. He's like, were you a smoker? He's like, no, just lucky, I guess.
Just lucky.
That's how good the writing is in this. Yeah, it's Chance Kelly played Ferrando. Yeah, the characters are just an Encino man, which I guess the real guy is just super pissed about this show.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do not paint him as a very good character.
No.
I was really happy. Michael Kelly, who plays Alpha Team's captain, Bryan Patterson, I think, or whatever. I really like him as an actor.
Oh yeah.
Like watching him in obviously he's in Jack Ryan right now on Amazon. He was in, oh my goodness, the name escapes me, but it's the one the DC show
House of Cards.
House of Cards. Thank you. With House of Cards, I think he's fantastic. Honestly,
it's a really good character actor.
He's one of those character actors that I think actually can hold his own and have his own show. Put him in the lead of something, and I think he could bring it. I think he could hold it. So, I mean, he just has that kind of charismatic kind of feeling to him where I'm just drawn to him. And he does a great job in this of playing one of the competent captains in this Force Recon, team. So it's going back. There's a lot of great lines. We've already said several of them that are in this.
Yeah, try not to make this just an entire quote episode.
But there's a special place in my heart because it references one of my favorite comedies, The In-Laws, that Evan Wright, as they're running away from being shot at or whatever, and they're all going straight, and then Rolling Stone guy runs, and he's running side to side, and he's just serpentine, Shelley, serpentine. And they're just no, just go straight. That's the dumbest thing that you've ever done.
Well, I love it when he gets his junk caught in that
that's right.
that chemical warfare suit that's too small. Yeah. And they're they cut it off because he's all bound up in it, and it's bad because they've just had a gas drill, and they're like, this Rolling Stone reporter is this total screw up, and screw up's not the verbiage they use, and they was no. Oh, it'll probably fit right in then.
Oh, such a such a good show.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's a lot of cursing, a lot of crude behavior. I mean, even more so than some of the other stuff out there, but just some of the topics they talk about, some of the things they kind of address within the show, like it's just a solid commentary of kind of what, like you said, what the modern military really is.
Yeah, it really addresses the only other movie that I can think of that addresses the boredom of war would be something like Jarhead.
Oh,
and this does a good job too of just conveying like how often these guys are just sitting around doing nothing or just sitting in Humvees for hours on end while their legs cramp up to get from one objective to the next. I mean, movies portray war as just constant combat, and that's just not what this is. That's not what the reality is. It's bursts of that followed by absolute boredom. So how else are you going to keep your mind sane than being hysterical and just finding, you know, do I smell charms in this Humvee? It's such a good, I totally recommend people watch this. You just, you need to understand, like, you know, for those of us that have never served, and I've never served.
Neither have I.
It's a great look at what our modern military is and the walks of life. And, you know, these guys are super professional. Like, that's the irony of it, is they're just in their downtime. It's just, you know, the comedy, but when push comes to shove and they have an objective to achieve, I mean, these guys just switch it on at the drop of the hat and are just, it's go time.
Yep.
And it's amazing. It's amazing. Like, it's amazing to watch. And even in the context of the show that these guys exist. Cause I do. I almost recommend somebody just YouTube Marine recon training and to have an understanding of like what it takes. And the fail rate is just as high for that as any of the other, you know, Army Special Forces, Ranger School, SEAL. It's, I'm not going to get into a debate of like who's better or whatever. That doesn't matter. But these guys are basically Special Forces adjacent.
And going on the non-story wise, technicality wise, like, it's shot really well. The sounds, like the gunfire, and the distant gunfire, because a lot of times they're sitting outside close to a battle. And so it really does, they've done a great job of, you know, the production quality to make it still feel dangerous, even though you're far away. You know, or if that constant rat-a-tat of automatic weapons going off, mortars going off, like, you really get into the thick of it. The production value on this is fantastic. Like, it really, it's up there in one of the shows of production value. I don't think it had a huge budget. I think it had a pretty small budget, if I remember correctly, in regards to other HBO shows.
So it's really funny. You know, this is not from memory. I had to look this up. I thought that this was the case, and it is. It was shot on Super 16 millimeter film, just like Band of Brothers. So it's got the heavy film grain. This was shot on an Ariflex SR3, which was the new 16 millimeter film camera when I was in film school, in graduate school. We had an SR2 and an SR3. So this is not a fancy camera. And now they shot with really nice lenses. They shot with Zeiss super speed glass. Okay. So, but this is a lot of run and gun shooting, and it has that style. It's all handheld, but it's not that shaky cam nonsense you get in some other modern movies. Like, they don't do that. It's a steady image, but it's handheld, and it's a beautiful show. Yeah, it looks like the real thing. Like, it really does. It has that look. It feels like they took 16 millimeter film cameras and really embedded with First Recon. That's the way the whole thing looks. So you're right. On a technical end, it has everything going for it. they kind of strategically do a nice job of a little bit of CGI as far as like when they have those Cobra helicopter gunships come in and run close air support, but it looks convincing. Like it doesn't look fake, but I don't think that they had, I could be wrong. I don't think they had access to Cobras, and I don't know how much involvement they had from the Marine Corps, to be honest. I imagine a decent amount. The whole thing looks and feels so accurate that I'm guessing whoever the advisors are were the real deal. And of course you had Rudy Reyes on site, and he's also, I believe, credited as a technical advisor.
Yeah, he is. Cause obviously he was part of this team. So he was able to kind of tell them like, this is right. Or at least tell them where they could kind of push the envelope of turning into, a series or television series for dramatic purposes or whatever, and not really lose too much out on it. But no, really well done. It's a lot of the same. Obviously, it's a lot of sand, a lot of desert hues, a lot of tans, a lot of browns, but yet it still looks great. I'm glad they did that 16 millimeter film at that grain, because it does feel like you're on the ground with them. It doesn't feel like this super polished, which detracts and makes me feel like I'm farther away. It feels like I'm right there almost looking at it.
So I didn't realize this. I just pulled this up. This is not where I would have guessed that they shot this. So they shot in South Africa and Mozambique and a little bit in Namibia. It's superb. It sits in those HBO series alongside like Band of Brothers. This is a much better series than the Pacific. I like the Pacific, but this is much more cohesive. Band of Brothers is, I would rank ahead of it, but this is really good. And then obviously shows like Chernobyl. But for me, the list isn't real long of the miniseries that HBO has done that I just think are out of this world great. This is one of them. This is one of them. I probably could count on maybe one hand the number of them as far as the miniseries that only have, because this is 7 episodes, and it's as long as they need to be. Like this thing doesn't feel stretched thin. Like it moves real quick from one episode to the next. But
I don't feel like an 8th episode really would have added that much. Like I felt this is paced really, really well. 7 episodes is all it needed, and that's the perfect amount. Yeah. Really enjoyable.
It is. It's tremendous. And like, there's not any real motivation for anybody to make anything now that's like, there'd have to be another conflict or something, which hopefully there's not. I love the military and I love military shows, but I'm cool if we're not getting involved in another conflict. But
#concur.
Yeah. Yeah. This thing's great. It doesn't feel like it's less cinematic, I think, than something like Black Hawk Down, only because Black Hawk Down's got like such a stronger color grade over everything. Like it's more stylized. This isn't really a stylized look. This is the film footage isn't really doctored up a whole lot. It's clean, but it doesn't look, I don't know. They did a good job where it just feels authentic. Like nobody's clean in there. Like everybody's stuff's just covered in dirt and sweat, and like it feels lived in. The whole show feels really lived in. All the equipment feels beat up, which it really is. These guys were having to pay to fix their own Humvees,
make repairs.
To make their own repairs. Like it's a really, in some ways it's an impressive look at our military, and in some ways it's a damning look at our military too, as far as, but I'm convinced the Marines are just given crappy stuff to keep them angry. And I think the show even mentions that. It's just like, they don't give us, it's not like the Army that gets all the latest stuff. They give us crappy stuff to just keep us mad. Cause they're America's pit bull. That's the Marine Corps. So
we send them out when we really want to do damage.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they're ready in a moment's notice to do damage too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's better at breaking stuff than the United States Marine Corps.
Like you mentioned Black Hawk Down, like in Black Hawk Down, you know, when the little scroll at the beginning, that the Ridley Scott scroll, the beginning of his film, you know, he doesn't say the U.S. sent 20,000 troops, you know, to Somalia to kind of keep the peace. He says the U.S. sent 20,000 Marines to keep the peace. You know, it's spelled out. No, we sent those Marines.
Yeah.
They kept the peace, you know.
Oh, yeah.
They made people back down.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, oh, man. So, final thoughts?
Final thoughts is I'm probably going to watch this in the next 2 to 3 days again. Is my final thought. I love that. I love this show, and it's not purely laughs. Like, it gets very poignant near the end, you know, of what some of the futility of the conflict and just the situation they'd find themselves in.
And it's not afraid to approach some of those subjects of how do you deal with prisoners of war, or how do you deal with enemy combatants, and like how to deal with, I mean, PTSD kind of in some situations, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a real look at 2000, you know, circa 2003 march to Baghdad. And it doesn't even matter how you feel politically or how you feel about that conflict at all. Like we're not saying you got to feel one way or another, because this is a really just an honest look at a group of guys that this was their job. These were their orders, and this is what happened. And it's entertaining, it's enlightening, it's funny. It works on every level you would want something like this to work on. So yeah, totally recommend it if somebody's just not, if they've heard about it and then forgot about it, because it has been out for a long time now. But yeah, Generation Kill. It's
on Max.
It is Max. I'm still getting used to that. Max.
Yeah. Well, even then, like, there's jokes that Max is gonna just sell all its stuff and, you know, license it all out and just kill.
Is Pepsi gonna buy him?
I don't know. Maybe, you know, might as well.
We just relabel it Pepsi Max. Bad joke.
I didn't see that one coming.
No.
I should have, but that's terrible. That I did not. Oh my goodness. All right.